What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Last week, we got a bunch of new info on Onimusha Way of the Sword. First, at Summer Game Fest, we got a pretty short trailer, but it revealed a lot of new information, with one of Musashi's rivals, Kojiro, kind of being one of the highlights of that trailer. But after that, we got a metric fuck ton of new info dropped online, through things such as articles and video interviews. I was originally going to make this video last week, but there was just so much info that kept coming out that I decided to kind of let the dust settle a little bit before I made this video. It seems the flames have cooled to embers at this point, so I spent the past couple days snorting up new info like it's my drug of choice. And let me tell you, this is some good shit.
Tight, yeah! Blue, yellow, pink! Whatever, man, just keep bringing me that.
Surprisingly, there was actually a live demo showcase at Summer Games Fest, and it apparently had a lot of cool things to showcase. Obviously, gameplay being one of the biggest things to kind of, show off in a demo. Several gaming journalists have made note about just how juicy Musashi's animations are. They've been described as dance-like, which makes it sound like Musashi's moves are pretty buttery smooth, which, especially for an action game, those things matter. Another thing the gameplay demo highlighted was parries. Apparently, they're super cinematic, and we've seen a bit of that in the trailers. In Way of the Sword, parries actually redirect the enemy and kind of knock them off balance. And depending on the direction you're pushing the analog stick, you can push them in different directions. You can even push them into environmental hazards, which again, we've seen in previous trailers, but it's nice to know that it's a pretty big feature of the gameplay. The press demo concluded with a boss fight against Kojiro, and apparently the person playing the demo during the showcase officially confirmed that we'll have more than one run-in with Kojiro. That was kind of a given, but it's nice to have confirmation. I'm assuming the demo took place early on in the game, and that probably goes for all the trailers we've seen so far, but overall, it seems the journalists really love the demo. And I've seen several articles praising it as one of the best things at Summer Game Fest, which, for a series that's been dormant for about 20 years, is super impressive, because it was still pretty niche back then, too. Or it was at least kind of in the shadow of games like Resident Evil. We've also got a pretty unique deflect feature in Way of the Sword. Apparently you can deflect arrows right back at your enemies, which really gives me Star Wars The Force Unleashed vibes, and I'm here for that. I love those games. Apparently the demo highlighted instant attacks too, and we've got confirmation that they can be chained together against multiple enemies. Capcom said the combat is mostly about reading your opponent's moves, and carefully deciphering just how you want to take them on. They said it has a more deliberate pacing, so there's moments of careful, samurai-esque gameplay where you kind of decide your next move and read your opponent, and a bit of Oni craziness, where you can do things like, in quotes, superhuman speed dodges, which sounds really cool. So it seems they're trying to find a balance of like super move type stuff and more, grounded gameplay, which I like. Following the showcase of this demo, we got confirmation that the game is pretty linear, which is pretty true to most of the Onimusha games, outside of maybe Dawn of Dreams, which was a bit more open, but I'm kind of glad they're not straying too far from the base formula. Though you can talk to citizens in Kyoto, who will sometimes give you side quests. Not only that, but it's been confirmed that Musashi will have companions throughout the story, who will help Musashi in a gameplay and narrative sense. They can also give you side quests as well, which is a really nice touch. I've seen a couple conflicting statements on how the demo ended, but all of them seem to say that Kojiro was one of the final boss fights of the demo, and apparently, the ostrich-like boss was also featured in the demo. And assuming this is an early game demo, there's a pretty big chance that Ostrich is the first boss of the game, which is a really nice callback to Onimusha Warlords. Apparently, they also showcased that other boss we saw in the second trailer, which had kind of a weird Bloodborne vibe, which further showed the variety in bosses in Way of the Sword. There's also something called a Break Issei, where you can either attack an enemy in the head for a lot of damage, or you can stab them in the torso, which will release a bunch of orbs for you to absorb. I'm assuming it's going to be kind of a mix of orbs, so you can expect red, yellow, and blue orbs. And maybe purple at some point, but we'll talk about that later. Maybe? That sounds like a really fun addition to the series, and I can't wait to kind of balance what I want to go for when attacking an enemy. Or boss, probably mostly bosses for this type of situation. We also got confirmation that red orbs are no longer for upgrading your weapons or armor. You're actually going to use them for a skill tree, where you can unlock new moves for Musashi. There's also only one main weapon for Musashi, unlike previous Onimusha protagonists. I know you guys are going to be like, but we saw other weapons in the other trailers, and I guess the magic bar this time around is specifically for summoning unique weapons temporarily. So those really cool daggers and those time warping hammers are something you can only use for a brief time. That's a really odd choice, but I kind of like the new take on the weapon system. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure there's gonna be a few OG fans that are a little upset about this, but I'm honestly excited to see this new take on the series. Now, outside of the Summer Game Fest demo, through multiple interviews and articles, we've gotten a bunch of other cool new info, and also images, which I'll show you guys in a second. One of the new things Capcom's taking great pride in is the game's setting. I'm gonna butcher this name, but they actually recreated Kiyomitsu Dera Temple. This temple actually still stands in real life to this day, in Kyoto, Japan. Capcom apparently went the extra mile making sure this was accurate to the actual location, by working with actual temple officials to make sure it was accurate. That's pretty cool. These are the types of things that make me really hopeful for Way of the Sword, because if they're taking this much precaution with location alone, we can only imagine how the gameplay and story is going to be. Through interviews, we've also learned that Capcom's wanted to continue the Onimusha series for years. Actually, ever since the release of Onimusha Dawn of Dreams in 2006. The producer of Way of the Sword said it was just kind of due to a clusterfuck of factors, so it didn't end up really coming to fruition until early 2020. We also got a bit of new info about Kojiro and Musashi. Apparently, throughout Way of the Sword, Musashi is going to be a bit reluctant to use the Oni powers, but Kojiro will revel in it. It was stated by the director that instead of using the gauntlet to help people, Kojiro will use it for other purposes, like slaughtering people. It seems that Kojiro is going to embrace the Oni gauntlet to its maximum potential, somewhat akin to our former protagonists. I don't know about you guys, but that last trailer seemed oddly reminiscent of an Onimusha Warlord scene, if you guys know what I'm talking about. The director actually stated that Musashi doesn't even want the gauntlet, as he doesn't feel like he needs it to be successful. He wants to be the best swordsman in Japan, and I'm sure he kind of feels like the gauntlet's a bit of a crutch. In my opinion, his feud with Kojiro, who is 100% embracing the Oni power, is going to force Musashi to activate his Onimusha form, which is going to be so badass and I can't wait. The girl at the end of the Summer Game Fest trailer was also finally confirmed to be the one that was talking from the gauntlet in the second trailer. She said to kind of act as a guide for Musashi, so that gives me a bit of an Akko vibe, which I kind of already assumed, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Puzzles are also confirmed to be back, but they're going to work a bit differently in Way of the Sword. According to the director, they're going to be a bit more woven into the narrative. So for example, you wouldn't be able to progress the main story until you finish a door puzzle or something like that. While I am going to miss all the random puzzles from the previous games, I have hope that the new ones will do the game justice. Musashi has also been confirmed to be the only playable character in the story. As I stated earlier, he'll have allies throughout the story, but we unfortunately won't be able to play as them. I'm not gonna lie, I always hated those sections in the previous games, so this is kind of a welcome change for me. There's also no gift giving system or hub area. I don't know why they had to clarify that, especially since that was only featured in Onimusha 2, but there you go. Oh, I almost forgot. Apparently enemies can absorb souls now too. Not just those weird blobfish things that are kind of ripping off the skull ones from the previous games, but just any enemy. They can absorb souls and get access to new attacks, which should hopefully add a whole new element to the game, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I also know that a lot of you guys out there are really worried that Way of the Sword is going to be a Souls-like, and when asked directly about that, they kind of dodged the question a little bit and just kind of reiterated previously disclosed gameplay features and a little bit of the setting, I guess, which is kind of unrelated. So that kind of insinuates to me that the game is a little Souls-like inspired, but I have no problem with that. From what I've seen, it seems that it's mostly drawn inspiration from Sekiro and maybe a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima, but I have full confidence that this gameplay is going to be chef's kiss. There's also a new thing called Oni Vision, which is that weird feature we saw in the previous trailer, where Musashi kind of wills new structures into existence. According to a couple articles I've read, that also has a narrative function as well, letting Musashi glimpse into the past and uncover secrets. Does this sound like Eagle Vision to anyone else, or am I just crazy? We've also got a couple screenshots of the supposed Oni Vision, and if you look at the markings on Musashi's face, they're eerily similar to the Onimusha form markings, which again is another hint to the Onimusha form we've yet to see. I know right now they're acting like it just doesn't exist, but I know it's in the game. There's no way they're making an Onimusha game without an Onimusha form. That's like Devil May Cry with no devil trigger. Also, for those that live in Germany, Onimusha Way of the Sword will be playable at Gamescom in August, which is super exciting because we're bound to get a bunch of new info around then. I'm expecting at least 1 or 2 new trailers, along with maybe/finally some raw gameplay footage. We've all really been waiting for that, and I can't wait to see them deliver on that at Gamescom. And lastly, I do have some unfortunate news for most of you guys, but it's been officially confirmed that Onimusha Way of the Sword is a standalone title. The director of Way of the Sword stated that the game is completely unrelated to every entry in the series, and I know that sucks ass, but it seems that Capcom's still doing what they can to reference the previous titles. For example, that new boss is totally not Ostrich or anything, but like kind of, you know, actually Ostrich. So I have full confidence that they're still going to do the OG fans justice. Mark my words, guys. Way of the Sword is going to push the Onimusha series to Resident Evil levels of hype. Trust me, I just feel it in my bones, my Oni bones. Also, Way of the Sword is completely unrelated to the anime. I mean, that was pretty obvious at this point. Seeing as Kojiro looks so different from his in-game model, I know there was a lot of confusion there for a little bit because Musashi looked very similar, but no, it's completely unrelated. However, it does seem like they're taking a few narrative cues from the anime, which I'll be sure to talk about in a future video. But yeah, guys, that's about every bit of new info we've gotten on Onimusha Way of the Sword in the past week or so. I thought we'd get a little bit of new info, but I had no idea we'd get this much. Let's just hope the marketing for Way of the Sword picks up soon, because after this past week, I can't wait to find out more. I haven't been this excited about a game in years. It feels like the 2000s again or something. It's almost enough to bring a gamer tear to your eye. But what do you guys think of all this new crazy info? Just think for a second, guys. We've barely gotten any info on this game, and everything we've learned has been super cool. I think we're in for a real Genma treat here. I've got a lot more Onimusha videos coming soon, so be sure to let me know in the comments what you want to see next. And before you go, be sure to slice that like button, and don't forget to absorb that subscribe button, man. If you squint your eyes, it kind of looks like a red orb. Just saying. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.